So this has been a wild ride for you, huh?
Yeah, it's been a long road. Nobody could have imagined basically from looking back from my life that we're going to get here. Today I have to talk with uh, great people around the world, such as you, and being the biggest podcast ever, you know,
And be
for,
about to fight for the UFC heavyweight championship of the world
for
too,
the second time.
for the second time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the redemption.
the redemption. What was the first time like for you? What was the feeling of the first fight like for you?
Oh, um, I had two different feelings from that fight. First, obviously, I was very upset and disappointed that I didn't win the fight. And as everyone who is fighting for the title, you want to get out there as a victorious. But to be honest, I always look in that fight, and since the fight day, just after the fight, I look at it and I'm like, this is good. Like, I learned just too much in that fight because even though I was in the level of fighting for the uh, world title, you know, but I still have some missing part in my game and in my experience. I remember I was asking my questioning myself like, okay, how did it look like to go into 3 rounds?
Right.
Basically, I'm going to a potential 5 rounds that I never been in 3 rounds. How did it look like? How is it to prepare for this kind of fight? And I had this fight like 6 weeks earlier, so I was having a lot of question. Then after that fight that night, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a very big learning experience, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because you
That
were
was a big.
smashing everybody. You were
Yeah.
knocking everybody out. So you had these very quick fights.
Yes,
So
very quick rise, and didn't spend enough time in the octagon to like have those experience. Even though I was almost like he he was almost 4 years, 3 years and a half since I'd been 4 years that I'd been doing the sport, but didn't spend enough time in the octagon to have that experience. I think in one night I have it I cover more than what I've been spending in the octagon from the rest of my career.
yeah, no, I'm sure it's got to be a difficult thing to figure out how to pace yourself for a 5 round fight when you've only been knocking people out quickly before that.
Yeah. Also, some people get here while they've been while they've been having athlete lives for a long time, maybe wrestling,
Right.
maybe doing some different sport at school or at college, but I never get into that stuff. Growing up, I was just like finding my way to survive. Then I end up finding myself in somewhere that I never been there. So the experience was just crazy.
How old were you when you had your first training, your first martial arts training?
Oh, that was in summer, October 2013. That was my first match.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just
So
8 years ago.
yeah, and 2 years after that, I was fighting my first fight in the UFC, and I remember, basically, like at first when I went in the martial art, it was just for fun, to curiosity. I'm like, oh, it's fun. Oh, it's good. I like those kick shit, or but I didn't like seeing myself being a UFC fighter, and people was like, "Oh, if you put yourself into this, you can become a UFC fighter and a UFC champion. You can have a UFC belt wrapped around your waist." I'm like, whatever, Didn't care about it until I have the UFC contract. Like 2 years after that, I'm like, okay, this might be the opportunity that I have been looking for. So it's time to capitalize and showcase my talent and shock the world.
How many fights did you have before you fought in the UFC?
6 fights.
6 fights.
Yeah.
And did you have them all in France?
A few fights in France, just 4 in France. I had 4 fight in France, and in France the ground and pound is not allowed. When he goes that was back then because MMA was still illegal. So when he goes on the ground, he's just turned into grappling game.
Really?
Yeah. So I had 4 fights in France, one in Switzerland, and one in Bahrain.
Bahrain. So when did they find out about you? How did the UFC find out about you?
That was my coach Fernand. By the time was working with a manager named Thiago, a Brazilian guy. So they kind of like push. Thiago has a connection with. I mean, he was a manager, so Fernand was all the time sending him text message and videos that he would forward to the UFC and they were still like, yes, but he hasn't fight nobody tough yet. Yeah, he hasn't get a real test yet until I fought this guy in Bahrain named William Badulte and knock him out in the second round. Then I get my UFC contract right after that.
What was it like the first fight in UFC? Was it different?
Whoa. That was a crazy experience. You know, I didn't even know the rules back then. I remember I was in Orlando and I'm like, man, this is the time. Like, I'm going to fight to be seen in the whole world. So this is the time to take my opportunity to showcase my talent, to prove that I can do something. Then I'm like, okay, so what is this? What it is about? It's MMA. How MMA works? What is the rules? How it goes? And I couldn't get it. Like, didn't know the rules. But
Because you got used to no ground fighting, punching on the ground, because there's no ground and pound in France.
yeah, even though I was just doing it for 2 years, and remember at first it was just for fun.
Right.
So didn't really was there to become a professional fighter. You know, all I cared about at the time was boxing. Then I found myself there in 2 years. Then I'm like, okay, what is the rules again? How it works? Okay, if he try to take me down, I can do this. Like trying to figure all those out. It was very stressful, and I'm like, guess what? At the end of the day, it's just fighting. I mean, I don't know if this guy is doing some kung fu shit, but it's just fighting. We're gonna figure it out, you know. It's just men between men,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
Yeah, we're gonna figure it out. I mean, you know, I'm a tough guy, you know, so I can handle it.
Why did you transition to MMA and not go into boxing?
It's not like a transition, and I didn't have a choice. You know, I was doing MMA because when I went in France, I didn't have a paper, so I was illegal, so I couldn't work, and I wanted so bad to do sport, and I was doing boxing and MMA. But the MMA was the one that was more open and giving me opportunity. Like having a UFC contract as an MMA fighter was a big deal, and didn't have much. You know, like boxing war is kind of like a very complicated business. You have to know somebody. They have to like line you up. It's very complicated. But MMA was just easy. You know, people out. Then I'm like, who is that guy? We want that guy. It was pretty easy MMA wise.
Yeah,
and
boxing you have to be connected to the right
Yes.
promoter. And,
yeah, and that takes time.
Yeah.
And basically, regarding my situation back then, I had a lot of odds, you know, coming from nowhere, nobody knows me with my accent. And, you know, in French, when you have accent, it's not a good thing.
It's not?
No.
What's it like over there?
It's frustrating because the way that they look at you when you speak with your accent, you know, you don't feel comfortable. You can't like let yourself express yourself. You just feel bad about yourself, you know, just seeing some people reaction sometime, and you didn't have a resident card. You was like a migrant, so it was kind of together was a tough situation to deal with. Basically in the boxing business, because they're gonna go see this promoter, talk about you, but who is that guy? where did this come from? You know, it's
Yeah.
hard to have credit from someone.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for free only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.